Welcome back to Study Skills for Success in College. This is Chapter 4, Active Study Strategies, Learning How to Learn, Part 2. For this lecture, we'll be discussing the reading text materials, taking effective lecture notes, and then a word about attending class. Managing time for reading assignments. Regardless of age, academic background, major, confidence level, students are all surprised by the challenges of reading assignments, both in terms of how difficult the reading can be and in terms of how much there is. Students generally improve when they wisely manage time for reading assignments and use active rather than passive reading strategies. When someone reads, they're engaging in reading. But by engaging with your reading, you'll understand and remember more of the text. We'll show you how. Let's take an example. You have to read a difficult chapter of 50 pages this week, and you feel overwhelmed by the amount of material. Now, 50 pages can seem like a lot for only one course, but especially when you've got the same amount or maybe even more for some or all of the other courses. But if you commit to reading 10 pages a day for a week, that seems rather manageable. If you break a 10-page assignment into 2 daily sessions of 5 pages each, that's even more manageable. As is so often the case, the key is to use time management strategies to handle your reading load. And I would add a reminder of the benefits of writing short summaries of your reading session material. I do this every morning for my devotional time. It keeps me engaged with my reading, and it's available to me the following morning as a reminder of what I read the previous morning. Now, we've given you several strategies that will help you keep up with your reading. But you want to do more than simply read the material. You want to understand it and remember it. Students who passively read don't pause to check for comprehension, mark unfamiliar terms, they don't ask questions about the text. And these are the things that you must do. Have you ever read a page and then stopped to realize you have no idea what you just read? The other zone, remember that? It is the other zone as I see it. It's an all too common example of passive reading. Students who actively read use a variety of strategies to check their understanding. Although active reading feels like it takes more time than passive reading, in actuality it saves you time because you understand the material better and you need less review time for the exam. Active reading typically includes writing, both in marking the text and in taking notes. Thus, active reading. You're actually doing something. You're acting upon your reading. Most active reading strategies have the following features. Preview. Preview the assignment by what? Skimming the chapter headings and subheadings and carefully reading introductions and conclusions. Notice key points written in italics or bold print. Some text chapters have summaries and discussion questions at the end. Many students like to read those materials first rather than last. Why? Because then they'll know what they should look for while they're reading. And next, highlighting or underlining. Read a section and then highlight or underline the key points. Because marking your text keeps you involved in the reading. It forces you to pay attention to the key points. Now, generally, it's best to read a section and then go back over the material and mark it. If you mark as you read, you'll very likely mark too much material, which will defeat the purpose of marking only the most significant information. This is something I learned early on. I would start highlighting as I read, and then I would look back at the page and, geez, I highlighted half the page. Many people, including authors, think that outlining, and more on this soon, outlining the chapter is more effective than highlighting it because it forces you to write out the concepts instead of just coloring them in. Not only does this help you to learn the material better, But when you take the test, you often have to write out the answers. That said, always use the strategy that works best for you. Margin notes. In addition to highlighting, underlining, or outlining key information, it's a good idea to write notes in the margins as seen here in Figure 4.3. Such notes can include questions you have about the text, important terminology, brief paraphrasing, which means rewriting it in your own words, of the important points. These notes can help you prepare for exams, and as I've said several times, the very act of writing these notes can help you to understand and remember the material better. I can think of no greater reason for this practice. Does your text have review questions at the end of the chapter? Try to answer them. Does your instructor post study guides and other materials online? BVT Lab, book, hint, hint. Use them. Does your text come with a study guide or supplemental website? BVT Lab, book, hint, hint. Use these to aid in your comprehension of the material. Text notes. We talked about margin notes. Now let's talk about text notes, that is, notes about the text. These notes are almost always more in-depth than margin notes, but remember that the purpose of taking notes is to write down key points from the lecture or reading, not to write down everything. And this is really important. But what exactly are the key points? To illustrate this, let's take a close look at a simple introduction to an article titled The Importance of Play: How Kids Learn by Having Fun. Keep in mind that this is simply the introduction to the article. It's the start of the article, introducing the reader to what they will be reading about. But we can use this simple introduction example to highlight the key points found within. Let me first read it in its entirety. Play is one of the most important aspects of a child's life. Why? Because through peekaboo, pat-a-cake, playing house, children learn to think creatively and interact socially. Through play, they develop physically and discover a slew of emotional skills, and they learn how to process the world. In short, play is pivotal to your child's development. Quote, "Play is how children learn," says Dr. Tiff Jumali, a pediatrician at Interactive Pediatrics and Madison Studio City in Los Angeles. What's more, according to a 2012 study, play reduces stress. Quote, "On the whole, play is associated with responses that facilitate learning and work off stress," said Jumali. But what are the benefits of play, and what type of engagement, toys, or activities do children really need? We asked some experts to weigh in. Okay, that is the introduction to a much longer piece entitled The Importance of Play: How Kids Learn by Having Fun. Now, since it's important to only note the key points within the article, exactly how do I determine what those are? This is done by close examination. By that I mean that the reader is required to first read in total the piece, just as I did, and then to filter the information. Think of it this way. The only ideas, and those ideas could be either in phrase or sentence form, but the only ideas found in the bowl after filtering all of the phrases and sentences in the piece, those ideas, the only ones there that after you've filtered are unique from any other around them, and they are those that are critical to the information given. In this introduction, there are 5. Only 5. First, let me scratch out in red the phrases or sentences that are either not key to the article or are repeated. And here they are. Now this leaves us with 5 key ideas. Here they are. Children learn to think creatively and interact socially. They develop physically. They discover a slew of emotional skills. They learn how to process the world, and play reduces stress. Now that I've, through careful examination, highlighted the key points, I can summarize the article's introduction. Here it is. Through play, children experience creativity and social interaction, physical development, emotional discovery, how to process the world, and fifth, reduction of stress. Granted, this process is a bit tedious and it requires careful consideration and some time, but think about this. When it comes to studying for a quiz that you might have on, say, this short introduction, would you rather study this or this? Outlining can be done in several ways. I used simple bullet points here, but you could use numbers, Roman numerals, or letters, or a combination. Outlines can also take the shapes of lists, diagrams, pictures, even flashcards. Making your notes visual can help you better understand relations or how it all fits together. Note-taking tips. Listening. You may be tired of hearing the word strategy by now, but it's an important part of success, and yes, there are note-taking strategies that will help you take effective lecture notes. First, assess yourself in exercise 4-7. That's a good one. Listening. To become a good note taker, you may need to sharpen your listening skills. You want your notes to be accurate, readable, and understandable. And you want to capture main points, ideas, and relationships, and to identify questions. You need to be able to stay focused and manage distractions, daydreaming, tiredness. Here are some methods for increasing your concentration during lectures. Sit in the front of the classroom. If you can choose where you sit during a lecture, try to sit at or near the front of a class. Students who sit in front are less likely to become distracted during lectures or to engage in side conversations with other students. Electronics like your phone or tablet should only be accessible if they're necessary for note-taking or for a good reason, like if you have young children or a sick family member who may need to reach you. Prepare for the lecture, read the material, review your notes, identify questions before you get to class. Ask and answer questions. Ask of yourself and of the instructor. How can I use this? How does this relate? Listen for answers or raise questions with the instructor, either during or after class, and volunteer and answer when the instructor poses a question to the class. And handle distracting thoughts. If you think of something important but unrelated to class, you may need to write a quick note to yourself and set it aside until after class. There are many good ways to organize your notes. As we told you at the beginning of the chapter, the key is to find a system that works for you without making it too complicated. Here are some suggestions. Use the Cornell method. The Cornell method is a method of taking notes developed by Walter Pauk. It provides a way to organize your notes and to check how well you remember and understand the material. There's a great YouTube video on taking notes using the Cornell Notes method, and I would urge you to watch that video. I'll be sending it out on an announcement coming up soon. In fact, I'll make sure that I do that right away. Organization. Organize your notebooks. Keep your notes in a 3-ring binder with dividers to separate the various subjects. Better yet, keep a separate notebook for each course. If you do this, make sure you label the notebooks, or perhaps you Have different colored notebooks for each class so you're less likely to take the wrong notebook when you leave for class. Analyze your notes. Review your notes right after class whenever possible, or at least within a day of the class. If you review your notes shortly after class, then you'll be able to fix most errors and gaps that you find. You might also want to compare your notes with those of another student. If you're still missing essential points, you may want to seek instructor input, requesting that they review your notes with you, and then they can make suggestions. Mark your notes. As you should with a textbook, underline or highlight key information or questions. Attending class. And here are just a few thoughts on the importance of attending class. Beyond the fact that skipping class is a waste of your tuition money, there are several other reasons. When you skip class, you miss class discussions, where instructors tend to highlight what they consider most important, what's likely to show up on the exam, and even more. Skipping class isn't a very smart time management technique. It'll take you twice as long to find out what you missed and copy someone else's notes as opposed to actually attending class and taking the notes yourself. And being on time and attending class tells the instructor you value what they have to say, and it shows respect. Keep in mind, your instructor is not more valuable as a human being, obviously, just because they're an instructor, but they are more valuable as an educator than are you. Nearly all college instructors have at least a master's degree and in many cases a doctorate. They have a passion for their topics and they want more than anything else to share the knowledge that they have with their students. The image you communicate in class is important. Being on time and attending class is not the only way to communicate maturity and a positive attitude. You must also communicate respect for your peers and instructors and yourself by remembering the following. Avoid side conversations. If you like to sit with your friends, sit up front so you're less tempted to talk to each other instead of attending to class material. It'll improve your notes as well. Refrain from text messaging, as well as person-to-person side conversations. Avoid electronic side conversations in the form of text messaging. This is something happening more frequently than ever in classrooms today, and it is distracting, to say the least. Silence cell phones. Get in the habit of turning your cell phone off or on silent or do not disturb mode before entering the classroom. If you must have it handy for an important reason, at least put it on vibrate. This habit will help you in the future, like during meetings or presentations at work. Online class strategies. Now, online education can mean any learning that occurs over the internet, of course. Other terms for online education include distance learning or education, virtual learning, e-learning, web-based training. As online learning continues to grow and evolve, it becomes important to have both an understanding of online education and specific strategies for succeeding in an online class. Distance learning has grown because students, many of them live far away from campuses, they work full time, they have families or other obligations, and they need flexibility in their educational schedule. However, one of the biggest misperceptions about distance learning is that online courses are easier. In fact, these courses are usually more difficult for the average student. Why? Because they require a lot of self-discipline and self-motivation. Most students, when signing up for an online class, tell themselves, oh, I can do this. I'll make time. And they actually put time frames in their mind. For example, well, I know I'm home at 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock every night, and I'll make sure that I study during that time. But when reality sets in and they don't do it, it becomes a habit. They don't do it, and they don't do it again, and they don't do it again. And before long, they're stressed out. Online classes are difficult. Online classes actually require much more self-discipline than standard traditional classes in a classroom. But if you have these traits, you should do well in these types of courses. That is, if you have the traits of self-discipline, etc. Another misconception is that all online courses are similar. In fact, there are several types of online course formats and experiences. Currently, online courses are broken down into two main types called synchronous and asynchronous distance education. Synchronous courses could include video chat software where students have face-to-face contact with faculty on a regular basis. Basically, everyone in the class logs in at the same time alongside the instructor. That is not this type of a course. This type of course is more like a synchronous course. Asynchronous courses use online bulletin board postings, chat rooms, text dialogues to conduct the course. In these courses, like this one, you may never really see the professor other than maybe a video introduction, but interact through messaging and postings, emails, etc. Some courses are hybrids and have some face-to-face interaction integrated with text dialogue and postings. In most courses, students sign in at least once a week for a live chat conversation. In addition, weekly assignments and session questions are posted in a course room or assignment outline, something like Canvas. Tests are usually given in a secure online location where students can access the test or an assigned project or paper. Let me just fill in synchronous and asynchronous. Here are some specific strategies that will help ensure your success with distance learning. Course room for asynchronous as well. First of all, for the ideas that I have, first of all, stay self-motivated. Read your postings daily. Read for example, for this class, make sure that when a message is sent out, an announcement is sent out, that you actually read it. You don't just look down at your phone and say, well, I'll read this later when I get a chance tonight. Stay self-motivated. Stay connected and respond to the posts on a regular basis to contribute to the discussion if it is that type of an online class. Also practice good time management. Balance your personal obligations and meet all your deadlines. Maintain an ideal study environment with all your needed technology and no distractions. And remember to avoid distractions your devices may tempt you with. Use proper citations when writing or posting about things you've read. Participate in any online training or orientation sessions. And lastly, keep a backup copy of everything that you do. Well, there was quite a bit of information here. I hope that you gained something from it. Even if you come away from this lecture with one good idea that you're going to use, it's worth the time. Thanks for checking in. We'll see you next time.